All right. What's up, Michael? How you doing?
Hey, good to see you, man.
Yeah, you or a avatar of you. So I hop on Zoom and then I see you join the meeting and then it says Apple Vision Pro. I go, oh shoot, here we go. And then
Yeah, it comes in like this, right? It's like, oh, what's going on? And then I just pop in.
the real impression I have, it's I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on Vision Pro and all that, but um, it's this feeling of obviously like whatever this is will continue to get better as time goes on and all, but it's not bad as is. It's not quite on the Lex Zuck level as we were talking about that interview they did in the metaverse, but it's still pretty good. And
Right.
my like impression here, I might switch you to full screen for a second so I can get the full view. Yeah. So my impression of this is that like I have a very strong sense of like this is some leap into the next step where like this type of conversation will become quite common in the future. And this is the first time I'm actually personally having this type of conversation ever, like right now, this moment. So it's pretty profound and like,
Right.
wow. Like, I think I told you a story about '07. My science partner, I was at her house for the science project and her dad was on Skype with his dad in Michigan. And it was the first time I'd seen a video call, like myself. And I remember it. I was like a little bit struck by it. And kind of same with this, right? Like, it's like, damn, this is you, but it's an avatar of you. And this will become super common in the future. Anyway, so that's my first impression, just like the gravity of that. It's the beginning of a new era, broadly, but also for myself specifically. Like this call is the first time I'm on a call with an avatar version of someone, and that's
Yeah.
so there you go. Yeah.
Right. And it's like it's a passable version of me. Um, I've done a lot of VR calls in the past, but we're almost like stick figures, right? The avatars are very clearly 3D models. And this, like, so on the front of the headset, it has LiDAR scanners and cameras. So it's
Mm.
able to fuse both like the 3D model of my face with the pictures of it. And it's like, it's still kind of in the uncanny valley, but it's like closer to me than a cartoon, you know?
I think it's on the other side.
And
I don't feel that uncanny valley. I mean, maybe a touch, but it looks like I'm talking to you. It's definitely.
yeah, it's, and like, it's kind of amazing that like if I close my eyes, right, or move my eyebrows, like there's cameras on the inside of this thing to animate my face.
Mm.
Um, and so it's definitely wild. My wife hates it, but I'm glad you appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. It's just interesting, really. That's how I feel. Yeah.
yeah. And I feel like the next step of this is because right now I still see you as a 2D screen and you see me as 2D, but in a version 2 of this, if we both had the Vision Pro and we're both 3D models, we could theoretically actually see each other three-dimensionally. There wouldn't need to be a screen. You would be in this space, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Wait, is that's possible with the current conception of the Vision Pro, right?
It's not. It's not. It's still through
Okay.
Zoom or WhatsApp. Yeah.
But that imagine has to be on the roadmap pretty soon or something.
I'm not sure. I mean, they've made a bunch of decisions that are very different from Meta. Meta has always been about let's put people in a 3D space. Even if they're stick figures, they should be able to walk around the same room. So like
Yeah.
that technology is there. The question is, will Apple want take this and do that same experience?
Interesting. Okay, cool, cool. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyways, once that is possible at this level of this level of photorealism, man, that would be really cool. I mean, like our talks are good enough as it is on Zoom, but even it's probably just that next level if you're sort of feel like you're in the physical space or whatever. And so I'd be interested to see that. Uh,
Yeah, it would be very trippy. I mean, you can take spatial videos with this thing, which means that you can basically like look around your room and it creates a point cloud of your room in a way. And so people, when they look at their own memories through this thing, people are saying that it's like they're in the afterlife looking back at themselves, at their memories. Cause it's like you actually get the embodied sense of like, whoa, I'm actually transported back into that place. It's not just a picture of it.
hmm.
So you could imagine that like, what you could have you could have an experience of my apartment that is not like a video game, but it feels like you are actually here.
Hmm. Yeah, that's truly like a paradigm shift in communication at
Yeah.
that point. That's really fascinating. When my grandparents both passed away and we had their house in Santa Barbara, California. We grew up going there every summer. It was like a celebrated family place and we were selling it. And I'm the one in California, so I was the last one there, kind of moving out all the stuff with the movers. And I documented every inch of that house with video and pictures
Mm.
truly with the thought, I
Yep.
mean, hey, it's nice to have those pictures, but I just had this feeling. This was in 2019 or even 2018, something around there. And I just had this feeling that if I could just capture this digitally now the house has been destroyed, there's some new person bought it, building a new house. So it no longer exists. But if I could capture it as it is now, there will be some technology at some point that would allow me to basically re-enter the space in some sense. I just had some sense of that. I
Definitely.
feel like, you can stitch together, or if you have video, you almost don't even need to. And with maybe even Vision Pro, you can sort of do that. So I knew that would come one day. It seems maybe a bit quicker than I had expected, but yeah, it's pretty neat to think about. So, um,
Totally. Yeah.
um, cool, man. All right, well, hey, let's here. I'll go back to split screen here, and all right. So, yeah, I want to just hear more on your full impressions of Vision Pro. I've not tried it yet. I've read about it. I've heard about it a bit from you via text. I understand that you think it's cool, and also it's really. Actually, I'll just let you explain. Like, what are your impressions? I know you have some.
Sure. Should I just get straight at it, or do you want to ease into it?
How would you ease into it? Maybe like the story of you getting it or something. Do you want to start with that?
Yeah. So, basically anyone can book an appointment to try it in the Apple Store. It's probably worth trying if you're even mildly interested. It's like a 30-minute demo, and it gives you a full sense of it. And I mean, I've seen some write-ups of it, and like people, it seems like people are crying in Apple stores. Like people get emotional over it. It's kind of funny.
Oh,
Um, and it is an amazing piece of technology. Like I would have anticipated that this thing would cost $10,000, not $3,500, just based on the specs. Um, and the way that I would introduce it is that it's like a virtual reality headset, but it doesn't really have immersive experiences. And it's not quite an augmented reality experience where, you're just using your eyes and things are augmented. The thing is called Apple Vision Pro, and the word vision is very literal. So
mm,
this product is actually vision, right? It is you're putting on a headset and it's using cameras to reconstruct your visual field.
mm,
So I see you as a floating screen in my room, but other than that, I can look to my left and my right, and I have with 95% clarity just the full perception of my room.
mm,
Um, so the idea is, by creating a form of vision that is close enough to your eyes that Apple can now layer in any kind of media into your apartment, right?
mm,
So you're in a Zoom window, but I could also, like right now, I just pulled up my photos and I have a monitor that's 130 inches right here of all my photos.
wow.
And that stays there. And so people can just, explode all the stuff in their laptop or phone, and it's just anchored like a picture frame in your apartment.
Mm, incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, my question is, you say it's not immersive, and I get, so the vision thing I get, but not immersive, I don't fully get, because there are things I've seen online, somebody's at their desk or whatever, and then, they change a setting, and then they're just like on top of a mountain at like sunset. It's this incredible landscape, and they're working. To me, how's that not immersive? Like, what would require immersion beyond what I've seen in some of these demo videos online? Oh, I lost audio. I lost your audio, Michael. I can't hear you. No, nothing. I'll pause it. All right, so he's back in the real world. Audio, she's on the Vision Pro. So yeah, my question was just on the immersive thing. You said it's not immersive, it's vision, but I have seen things online that seem to me completely immersive. You're at your desk and suddenly your whole world landscape changes to like on top of a mountain at sunset or something like that. Like that's immersive, right? Or what am I missing?
Yeah, so that is a really cool feature, and I see that as like the next generation of desktop wallpapers, right? So usually you see like I picture Windows 95, like that rolling hill in the background, and you're basically in the hill, and you can look around, you look up, and the clouds are moving, and you can just use your computer, and you're now in that place.
Yeah.
To me, that's like a 360 video
Mm,
where
mm,
it's surrounding you in all directions, but you can't actually walk into that hillside and like walk into one of the houses and navigate through a 3D space.
sure, sure.
Where the Quest 3 is defined by all these experiences where you're actually basically let loose inside of a 3D model.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, interesting. So Quest 3 resolution's a lot lower, but you can already it's already immersive. You can already go into these worlds and sort of it's true. So that would be because you texted me, you said it's not a true AR or VR. It's this spatial computing, vision, whatever. And so Quest 3, despite being lower resolution, lower price point, it is a true VR in your mind.
Yeah, it's like the Vision Pro is iPads, infinite iPads, just like, all around you. iPad Unchained, where Quest 3 is like a PS2 that you're
Mm,
inside of. You know what I mean? You know the difference? Like one is apps and the other is worlds.
yeah, really helpful distinction. Okay, that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, infinite iPads of infinite size. Yeah, it was funny. You sent me that video of the Super Bowl, and you're sitting there, and you said it was a 65-inch TV, which in the real world, the TV looked, I mean, kind of small relative to the thing that you then had in the Apple Vision Pro, which was this, yeah, massive screen right in front of you. Now, I mean, I'm sure. How much of the game did you actually watch in that? Just sort of for the novelty for a second, because I'm sure, completely cut off from the rest of the family you're there watching with, right? I mean, how
Yeah.
long did you actually watch?
Watched it for like 15 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And did they give you shit for it? Like sort of the social cost of, or they kind of knew you're just experimenting and having fun?
I think they knew I was experimenting. My mother-in-law kind of wanted no part of it. I think she's just like scared. And my wife, she's just over it. Like she's like, all right, like we get it. But she's not impressed by it. She likes the Quest better.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Cool. Now, yeah, so it's interesting. My understanding you're returning it tomorrow. Talk about why. You texted me that sort of nudges you towards consumption, but like, yeah, I'd just love to hear your full thoughts on why, yeah, why did it not make the cut? Why are you returning it?
Yeah, it's I'd say as a piece of technology, it's amazing. And what you can do on it, it is awe-inducing, as in to use your hands and your eyes to shape monitors,
Mm,
screens, and then to even see something like to go back through my vacation photos at full scale, right,
mm,
um is kind of like a wonderful experience in a way. Um, I'll even say that like as I'm doing stuff around the house with it, it's like, oh, I'm whatever making the bed, doing the dishes. Like as I'm doing things, it's like, hey, why not just throw up YouTube? And like within a second, you just put YouTube up. And so what I found is that it's like it's a strange bargain where you can have these amazing, mesmerizing screens around you all the time for the cost of putting this thing on the face that replaces your vision. Um, I just found that like that's kind of what this device calls for, where the Quest says, "Hey, come in for 30 minutes and play ping pong, or go 3D model for an hour." It's very specific. This is saying, "Hey, it's your computer and it's your TV," which is people do ambiently all day, and so people are wearing this device like 4 to 8 hours a day. Like, oh, I only understood it once I wore it all day as my main computer. Um, it's crazy, and it's the trade-off, right? It's like your screens will be better than ever. Like you're going to be immersed in bigger, more content for the price of your natural vision. And so
mm.
it's going to be dimmer. The exposure is going to be off. There's going to be artifacts, and yeah, it's just like not. I found after using it, it's not a trade-off I really ever want to make.
That's interesting. It's not a place you go and leave like the Quest. It's actually the expectation or to sort of get the proper value of it. It's you're ambiently using it as you do a phone or tablet. Yeah, like when I make, chicken here for lunch in my kitchen, I pull out the iPad and I'm watching something on YouTube as I'm cooking or as I'm eating. That's just what I do. And I can imagine what you're describing. It's just that on steroids. But yeah, I think one of the issues, I mean, there's a couple of issues. One is just physically wearing it all day. Like, how have you found it to be? I know Zuckerberg has some thoughts on this. Is it heavy on your face? Is it uncomfortable after prolonged use? Like the actual physical aspect of it, how have you found that to be?
For me, it doesn't bother me, but I've worn VR headsets for 10 years. I've worn stuff that's twice as heavy as this, so it doesn't phase me. I can wear it for hours at a time. Um, but the Quest 2 is lighter, so it's like the Vision Pro did not make a breakthrough in comfort of a headset. Like the
Yeah.
Quest is more comfortable.
When I see people walking around with it, it's jarring from the outside because, not to mention, they look like a cyborg type of thing, but like it makes sense that it replicates your vision, but like to a third party observer, like you think they're going to walk into a wall. Like my impression is, oh, they're off in some fantasy land. No, they're viewing reality through the
Yeah,
headset.
yeah,
It's,
exactly.
it's like juiced up reality, but like when you see these clips of people crossing a crosswalk, walking through a parking lot, whatever, wearing it, or even like getting out of their car, and it's just like, man, it's something sort of cognitive dissonance there. It just sort of feels off. But yeah, it makes a little more sense as you're describing it as like just enhanced vision, as opposed to them being in some other place while also in reality. Because that seems like
Right, right, right. They're in the world, but in like a simulation, a live simulation of the world.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was really fascinating to see the Mark Zuckerberg video going around Twitter. I mean, first of all, just stylistically, like he really seemed confident in his speaking, and he really just went at it in a very personal way. He basically just had this 3-minute video criticizing the Vision Pro on a lot of fronts, saying that not only is the Quest 3 better value at the price point, he just thinks in absolute terms it's better value. So that was really interesting. Like, I don't know, anything initially stand out to you about Zuckerberg's video? Like, I have some thoughts on it too, but yeah, like what'd you think of that?
yeah, I agreed with most of what he said. Like the field of view isn't an improvement. Um, it's not lighter. It's the using eye tracking in your hands as the main thing is not as actually productive and useful as people think it is.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, it's like it's not really the paradigm that I think Meta is going for. To me, and to I think a lot of people, is a lot more usable than the Vision Pro And
Mm.
yeah, it's just like the real two breakthroughs in this thing to me are the screen resolution
Mm-hmm.
and pass through, right? And like when you combine those two together, you can have this paradigm of wow, this is like better quality than my monitors and TVs, and it's I can now put them in my environment. So it's like Apple just kind of picked a different game to play. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, it's the wrong game to play, but they
Mm-hmm.
definitely won at that game, if that makes sense. Um, like if you want to just be in a media binge, this is the ultimate consumer device.
Yeah.
Like it's funny because it's marketed as two things, and it's a spatial computer and it's a theater wherever you go. And I'm fascinated by spatial computing, and I've always said like, damn, the Meta is not a useful, the Quest is not a great computer. It doesn't have my information, it doesn't have my files. Apple brings your files into it, so I can have my photos, we can text on it. So it's on its way to becoming a computer. But the Vision Pro, it's at a UX level, it's still unbearable to use as your main device. Like you can't really be productive in it, but for consumption, it is just like that's its main use case, to watch Apple TV, like Killers of the Flower Moon, you can just see that like on your whole wall.
Mm-hmm.
It's like bigger than a projector, but more clear than the clear screen you've ever seen. And when you look at a screen, it naturally increases the resolution of what you're looking at because it knows where your eyes are looking, and then it dims your whole environment. So it's using design to make this big mesmerizing thing even more clear, right? So it's like it's just hijacking our sense of wonder basically. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
working on a title for this piece on my review, and it's called like Devoured by the Sublime. And
Wow. Interesting.
the
Yeah.
sublime is like this feeling. I think it's like Edmund Burke, and he had this experience in the mountains. Just he talked about the scale of himself to the mountain that he was just like he surrendered to it, and it was
Mm.
like a religious experience that he had once, like in the mountains. And now every YouTube video is the sublime. It is just like you are just in awe of it in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that alone, it's fascinating to at least try it. Like, I really want to go try it just to get a sense of what that feels like. But I see what you mean that ultimately it is just all this consumption. I mean, people have made this criticism before when people say, "Hey, eventually we won't be on these phones." Like, it'll look so funny in the future when we look back to this time and our heads are buried in these little 5-inch rectangles, right? Like, it makes sense. It should evolve towards this better form of consumption. But I think your argument is that if that's at least right now all it is, it's still kind of limited. It's just a way more visually appealing, even sublime inducing version of what we're already doing. Andy Matuszek, he is this online thinker. Tyler Cowen linked to him. He wrote a review of the Vision Pro, and Yeah, he was saying like the apps, he felt like the apps for the Vision Pro are very safe. It's like kind of the same. There's not a lot of net new functionality versus what you have on your iPhone or iPad. It's
Right.
just displayed in this revolutionary way. He made a point that was interesting that the iPhone, when it was rolled out, was similar in a sense. Like it just had all the things that were available on your desktop, just on your mobile. But what ended up happening is these native use cases emerged. Like, okay, you could get on a flight in Boston and fly to SF or whatever and not have to do any advanced planning because suddenly it was all available on your phone. So it's the same functionality, but ported into a different I guess you could say form factor, then it opened up these new possibilities. Does that make sense? Like same technology, just in a new location, opened up new possibilities, and perhaps the same thing will happen to Vision Pro. But he was also saying like there could have been a lot more risks taken with like the types of apps available that could have. It's hard to even like theorize what these could have been, but like there could have been more leaps forward on the software level too. And right now it's kind of just the same software, new hardware presented in a revolutionary way visually, but in some ways not that big of a leap forward. I mean, it sounds like you basically agree with that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. What's funny is that the hardware is actually in many ways it has achieved the vision, and the software is what makes it unusable, right? To me, it's not the fact that I'm wearing a headset. It's not even that isolating. And I explain why later, but the actual user experience of Vision OS and the apps in it, just the UX to me was I couldn't actually function.
Mm.
Um, Little bugs, like if you try and copy and paste up to 3 paragraphs of text, that overloads the system and it crashes it and it resets all your window positions.
Oh wow.
So even like in my mind, the biggest miss is that yes, you can arrange your windows, but you can't save them, right? Like, yeah, I could leave the room and come back and it's here, but if I hold down the crown button and reset it by accident, or if there's a glitch, they all just fall out of place. And so you can spend so much time perfecting where you want the window to go, and there's no way to like save that to a layout. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's
I'm sure that'll change.
yeah, that has to change, but so everything is really temporary and fleeting now with the windows. If you could permanently anchor everything, then you start to have like an actual apartment,
Yeah.
digital apartment.
I'm really curious to hear why you don't think it's isolating, and then I want to talk about sort of the bigger picture of the Vision Pro spatial direction versus the Zuckerberg Quest immersive directions. But first, just why? Because to me, it again, having not tried it, but having seen others in videos and stuff using it, it seems extremely isolating. So, what's your case as to why it's actually not as isolating as one might think?
Yeah, I think um, I've had a lot of experiences in the quests, and because the pass through isn't good, you're very much stuck in there. You kind of have to take the headset off to even see somebody.
Mm.
But I had an experience where I'm on the couch, and it's very common to have in a relationship, you're both sitting somewhere, and oh, you're doing something, I'm doing something, we're next to each other, right? Phones, laptops, whatever it is. There's a case. My wife's on her phone. I'm on my Vision Pro, and I'm just processing pictures from the vacation
Mm.
that we just went on. But what I did is I casted the what I'm seeing up to our frame TV monitor, which is like 65 inches. So I see it on one screen, but my wife, she has like a feed of my vision, and so if I want her to look at something, I can just have her like, "Hey, check this out." She can look at the TV and she sees what I'm seeing.
Wow.
I see her, she sees me, so like we can kind of triangulate and look at the same thing. Whereas
Interesting.
with the Quest, there wasn't a great way to invite people into that world.
Cool. That's it.
Yeah.
That really helps because otherwise it does seem like you're totally in your own little world in there. And so that's interesting. You can toss it up to the TV. I mean, I guess it's like it's less isolating from the perspective of the one wearing the headset. Man, I still think if you're in the room with somebody, you're not wearing it, the other person is, there's just a visceral reaction. I've been seeing, just naturally, there's a lot of videos of these things right now. Are people talking about them a lot? There's a lot of articles with stock images of somebody wearing one. Even the Zuckerberg little 3 minute video, his buddy Kenny was wearing this headset. It's filming Mark, and then it cuts to a third angle of Kenny wearing this thing, and it's just, I just have this visceral reaction of kind of disgust when I see people wearing them. Honestly, like I'm not trying to like disparage it necessarily. It's just sort of the natural intuitive response. I feel it's like this thing is eating the face or something. It's kind of
Leech, yeah.
Leech, yeah, it's kind of twisted. It's like, you ever seen that art? I used to tweet these out with quotes. And there's some artist, some brilliant artist went to like the Louvre, and there's all these tourists sitting around on their phones. And he did this thing where their face, the color in their face sort of swirls and morphs, and the phone is like sucking it in. It's this one artist, and
Wow.
there's all these different airports, museums, hotels where people are sitting in these public places and their faces are getting sucked into the phone. I always think of that. I mean, this is a literal incarnation of that piece of art in a way of that type of that special photo that this guy does because yeah it's like your face is consumed. It's something about almost I don't know if you call it uncanny valley or what, but it's human, but then it's like all the indicators that it's human, but then the face is the eyes are the window of the soul, like the face.
Exactly.
Man, this guy, I don't know if you ever talked about John O'Donohue. I could pull this book up on my shelf on him, Carl, but he has some great lines about, all of nature sort of ignores us and doesn't care about us except like the space is this like shimmering beacon of connection amidst the sea of nature's indifference or something like that, right? It's really like compelling writing. And so the face is this like more so than the rest of the body, obviously, is just this like hugely important. They were wired to see faces, and something about it being so close to seeing the face, but just being eaten alive by this thing, it just really leaves me unsettled. Maybe that'll just change. And people would say when people walked around with earbuds, Apple earbuds for the first time, it was the same type of thing. But something about the face, it just leaves me unsettled. So I still think it's obviously isolating from the perspective of uh, the person in the room with the person wearing the headset. Would you agree with that? Or I mean, maybe that's
It
just
is, yeah, no, it totally is. And the this is very off-brand for Apple because their whole thing has been unintrusive technology. The watch just disappears, the AirPods disappear. Even with my Ray-Ban stories, like I put them on and I forget about them. When I want to take a picture, it's just there. So it's like there's this whole wave of invisible technology, and this blocks off your main sense-making device to the world, right? It is like symbolically and literally it devours your eyes, and that's why it'll get smaller, but even the next 10 years, it'll still be a pair of in this paradigm, right? Like in 2030-ish, it'll still be a pair of like swimming goggles that blocks your eyes.
hmm,
Um, it's going to be a while, I think, to actually get glasses that can pull off the fidelity of this experience, if ever. Just AR is a way harder problem than VR. Um,
how widespread do you think this is going to be? So one thing is at home by yourself watching a movie with your wife on the couch, get all that. How widespread do you think this will start to become where you just see, I'm walking down Main Street in Santa Monica and you're seeing people wearing this? I mean, it's sort of a novelty. Like right now to me, it's like, okay, like I saw a Cybertruck 2 days ago. I've seen two Cybertrucks in the real world, like
oh,
driving
wow.
through the streets. And it's an event. It's like stop what you're doing, stop what you're talking about, grab the person next to you, point it out, and admire and awe. Now, when I used to see Teslas in Virginia in 2015, it was the same thing. I just finished college. I would see a Tesla every month. It was a huge event. Then I moved to San Francisco that same year, and I saw one Tesla per day. I called it my daily Tesla. It was remarkable. It was like Tesla had been like this, like stop the conversation type of event, and that went to like you really notice it, but it's once a day. And then about 2 years after that, you started seeing more and more. And then I was like turning left, and like the lane in front of me, cars were turning left, and I think there's three or four white Teslas in a row, and that's when I was like, okay, Teslas are ubiquitous. Now you don't even blink when you see a Tesla. Now Cybertruck is this new thing, and then maybe that'll become regular eventually. It probably will. But when is because if I were to see somebody walking down the street, it would be like seeing a Cybertruck right now today. When will it become normal like those Teslas were to me? Like if ever, like how common is this going to be to wear this in public, walking around, on a sunny Saturday?
I think for the Vision Pro, possibly never.
Wow.
I don't think it's a device that is meant to be worn outside. I think the people who you see crossing intersections and driving Teslas, they're doing it for the hype, and they're getting tons of views. Like this is a cultural moment.
Right.
Like MKBHD, this is his most successful video since the pandemic. So like there's a lot of curiosity. So you're gonna film yourself being an idiot in public. Um, I feel like the smart glasses, the Meta 2 glasses were like basically sold out at all of the sunglasses huts I went to in January. And people are going to be wearing them. You're not even going to notice they look like glasses.
Mm.
And I think like when you're out in the world, it will always, I think people will be comfortable having themselves totally occluding. Um, I think it'll take off as an in apartment device
Mhm.
once it becomes more expensive and once you can, I don't know, we'll see. Maybe people will buy the infinite theater experience, but to me, when you can actually teleport into my space as a 3D avatar in my 3D room, that becomes very convincing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and those are kind of my two, like, I'm not going to consider using a all day device unless it like enables some novel form of remote connection or if it actually lets me be more creative. And it's
Yeah.
very easy to think that infinite monitors makes you more creative, kind of
Right.
like how having a complex second brain can help you write better. Like it's not necessarily that. Like um you know what I mean? Like
Of course. Yeah.
yeah.
What's the then you find out Cormac McCarthy wrote every novel, Pulitzer Prize winner or whatever on a typewriter, Caro, I think did the same thing. So yeah, I mean, not to mention every author, it's in 18th, 19th century, excuse me, is writing with, pencil and paper. Um, so there's like these hidden costs, I think, to these I mean, the thing is like YouTube for me is so addicting as it is when it's just on my phone or my iPad to be wearing a device where at any point I don't just have YouTube on a 5-inch screen. I have a sublime version of YouTube. Like that's, it has cost. Like I think a lot of these things just have a cost there. Oh,
Yeah.
you see the benefit and harder to see the cost. Meanwhile, I'm reading this book, Middlemarch by George Eliot, considered the greatest English novel ever written last night. And the writing is categorically different than anything that gets produced today. Like it's hard to believe it's the same language. It's so remarkable. And she was sitting there with
Wow.
a stub of a pencil, probably just scratching sauce on a piece of paper. So, anyways, yeah, I take your point that it's not necessarily on the surface it'll induce creativity, but actually maybe not. And really, like you said, it just bends towards consumption. Hey, one more question before we get to the metaverse Apple thing. I described to a friend the fact that you felt it was more of a consumptive device. And this is someone who's less in the like creator economy world, less thinking about creativity, right? She's kind of a normal guy. And he goes, okay, well, sure, but what's he looking for? Like, what's your friend looking for? What would have made it more creativity inducing? So I don't know. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Right. So my thinking, like the first thing I tried when I got it, because I'm using the typewriter every day now. I'm making typewriter essays. I thought that I would be able to go onto the typewriter, write up a page, basically instantly scan it into a Miro board that is then floating up,
Mm.
right? And I thought that the Vision Pro would allow me to fuse the typewriter with the digital spatial world.
Mm.
So I imagine a world where I'm typewriting using Miro. I have Notion windows up. I have my note taking systems all up. AI. So it was just this kind of like orchestration of analog and digital material that's all helping me write better. And I put it on and I realized, oh, the pass-through's not good enough where I can read physical letters. Like you can't read small print
Mm.
well through the pass-through. You can read digital print lucidly, but you can't read like a book through it easily.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's yeah, right. Very specific example to you, but that totally makes sense. Like it just that's so funny. It's such a basic function. I just being able to read something, but it can replicate. You're saying 95%, but that's kind of a critical 5% that's missing. If you
Yeah, you can't read.
in this world, that's we would say that's a big one. That's a big one for your eyes. That's a big, it's a big 5%.
Yeah.
That's a really good. That's a really good
But
answer.
if you shift to ebooks, it's the first headset where it's passable, you know?
Okay, so like the Quest, you couldn't do that, but you can read an ebook. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, very
So you
interesting.
can lie in bed, right? You can lie in bed and just shoot an ebook up, and at night you can just read without strain, without having to hold the book.
Hmm.
Um, but like you said, it's trade-offs, right? I heard this quote yesterday where every technological advance is an invisible amputation. So
Oh, that's good. My goodness, what's that from?
it was from Douglas Rushkoff. He's on the Duncan Trussell podcast. And the example is like, a GPS is a miracle and you're robbed of your sense of natural direction.
Yeah.
Um, calculators rob your ability to do quick calculations at a diner. And so the Vision Pro it's this quick moment of wonder, and everyone makes the hype video and how sick it is. But when you really get to use it and understand the trade-offs, it really disturbed me, like to a point where it was my first real life Black Mirror moment. Um,
Mm,
to the point where I had to reconsider my whole stance around computers,
mm.
right? I actually, all of my logs now happen in a black composition binder. So I'm
No
writing my logs
way.
by hand. I
Why?
stopped using Notion, and all of my tasks are managed on a
Wait,
legal
wait, wait,
pad.
wait, wait, wait. I gotta hear this. This is fascinating.
Yeah.
Why? Why? Also, describe the Black Mirror moment. What was the singular moment? And then what led to this insight that led to you going analog? I'm stunned actually to hear that.
Yeah, it is. It wasn't a single moment, but it was like the first 4 or 5 days of using it and just trying to find a use case to see if it worked. And
Hmm.
it's like, it's how spatial computing wants to be this all-consuming device where, oh, I can do everything in this thing now. Computers and iPhones have done that too, in a way that we've all accepted that paradigm. And without realizing, um, I default to thinking, hey, like, there's a certain convenience by aggregating everything I do into a computer. And the cost of that is I'm spending 10 hours a day on my computer doing basically everything, you know? Um, in architecture school, I was a very analog spatial thinker. I used sketchbooks, trace paper. I just give all that up because the convenience wasn't there. Um, but I kind of realized that, wait a second, the whole point of spatial computing is to bring back that pre-computing era where we had to use the different parts of our apartment for different functions and go over there to write, over there to read. There's my calendar. I said, why don't I just do that in an analog? What would it be like if I actually just had a spatial system that used writing and I had to go in my apartment to use the stuff? And it's been amazing. I actually feel the best I've ever felt. I'm like working out every day. Um, there's
Wow.
something about the slowness of handwriting that allows me to be more present, right? Whereas on a computer, when I need to decide what to do, it's like, oh, I weirdly get caught in a YouTube vortex or an email vortex or a Substack vortex. But now it's like, oh, I just go to my pads and I can just like be more in my thoughts.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's just like a very funny, like the Vision Pro turned me into this I don't want to say I'm a Luddite because I'm still very pro technology, but the way I describe myself now is a technological selectivist, which means I really scrutinize the pros and the amputations of every single device. And so that's why I use something as old as a typewriter, but something as new as the Meta glasses, but not the Vision Pro. So it's like very eclectic mix of things, you know?
Yeah, no, 100. What was the phrase you just used? Selectiveness or technological
Technological selectivism.
selectivism? That's a great phrase.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So first of all, it is quite ironic that, and yet really interesting that this leap forward is what actually induced you to go back and sort of use these old forms. It's funny. We've been doing, it's spatial living. It's great. We've been doing it since,
Yeah.
whatever, the Ethiopians walked out of Africa, whatever, 50,000 years ago. You get my point. That's really interesting that has caused you just to have a newfound appreciation, for the physical world. That every advancement is a invisible amputation is an incredible phrase. I've made this point before to people. Like, you can even go back, like, shoes are true of this. Like, people's feet used to be a lot hardier, and then we invented shoes, and your feet are softer. And that's not really like a tragic loss for my feet. Like, I think that's okay. Like, I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. Maybe somebody would disagree, but like, it is like something that's true when you add something's taken away. It's just such a dense phrase, such a economical phrase that advancements are invisible amputation. That's beautifully said. So I'm gonna remember that one for sure. What you said about the physical notebook, man, I was going through my Emerson books. I've got some time right now, and wouldn't you know it, I bought this really high quality moleskin, red, fiery passion of these writing that I'm reading. And yesterday, I just for hours went through, and I normally have really messy handwriting, and I just very deliberately, very carefully wrote very neatly, very small, just
Wow.
all the best phrases from Emerson's biography, from self-reliance, from history, from experience, from American Scholar. Like, I just went through, and what's funny is I was doing this. Uh, I was doing it on my Readwise app on my phone, and I was about how I'd done half of his biography. It's about a 600-page biography. I'd done half of this like a year ago, so I had
Mhm.
all the Readwise things zapped up into my phone, but I couldn't even like skim through them to remember which parts I like, because it's like it's in the app, and I'm having to like scroll through this app and try to like read these different, and I wasn't really getting the juice from the first half of the book. So and then I was scanning, and then I just said, you know what if I just write a few of these down? And I loved it. And I didn't use Readwise for the second half. I know that means it won't be my daily review on Readwise or whatever. Fair enough. But it's a lot easier just to flip through this and just sort of skim through and underline and star things. And anyway, so I'm going to keep doing that. And I really did feel present, like you were talking about.
Yeah. Does that change how you think about Readwise and like how you read stuff in the future?
Yeah, perhaps. I still like it. Because the daily review is really nice. I do it almost every day. I'll hop on and just get to see some, resurface some old quotes from books. And maybe in a different mood or different frame of mind, I would want to do that with some of the Emerson lines that were really good. So I don't think there's no value or something, but I think it is easy. It's so easy because again, it's like who is that? Like Chesterton or Milton Friedman will say about like a law that gets passed. The benefits are so glaringly obvious, and then the drawbacks are like insidious and hidden and take longer to come to bear. It's true of this invisible amputation you're talking about too. It's invisible. It's invisible. It doesn't show up on the feature sheet. It's funny. It's like invisible ink. There's the Apple Vision Pro and all the features, and then invisible ink beneath that. There's all the things that get taken away. But you have to really realize those for yourself because nobody's telling you about them. Where everyone's shoving the features down your throat. Hey, just a quick side note, and it's relevant because the first time I realized how, I guess we could say, the invisible amputation can be very costly was in college. I would used to have like a course catalog. You flip through and look at all the classes you could take. But then there's this website, this professor named Lou Bloomfield at UVA made a website. It was so great. He took the course catalog, he put it online. It's called Lou's List. And everybody used that to book their classes. Well, what happened then, I remember before my first semester, I flipped through all the pages of the physical catalog and was scanning all these cool classes I could do. When it was on Lou's List, I knew I liked history, so I just went straight to the history section, went down and found my classes. And I didn't just scan through the catalog because it's if you're flipping through a book, it's just a very nice, pleasant thing to read all these different courses that are offered. When it was in this e-form, it led me to just do what I already knew. And I sort of got to the end of college and regretted not taking a wider range of classes. Partly it's on me or whatever, but I do think partly I realized it was because it was in this website form that I never questioned. I thought it was so convenient. And if I had just had a damn course catalog, I think I would have taken completely different classes in college. So there's an example of the invisible amputation that I felt in my life. And it's just a small example, but I think it speaks to the broader point you're making about Vision Pro. So, yeah.
Yeah. Another word that relates to what the story you shared is tyrannical convenience,
That's
right?
cool.
It's how
Yeah.
convenience has this like, it's so unquestionable because of course, like we should do the thing that's easier. And it's almost like so many people just opt into it that it's tyranny. It's like you almost can't escape that temptation for things to be easier and easier and easier. And we have Amazon, we have Apple, we have the cloud. And it's like, how could we realistically turn down these like miraculous, benefits,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of really is helping me solidify my stance against technological optimism. And I'm not a pessimist either, but I love the way you said that, was it Chesterton who said that the features are so clear and the side effects are invisible? And that is the crux of the whole issue, where it's like, yes, we want to progress forward with new stuff, but we can't do it unless we fully analyze and do like cost benefit analysis of the side effects.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's also something here too. I'm really hung up on this point where there is a massive multi-billion, if not trillion-dollar marketing complex that exists to tout the benefits of technology. I mean, if you look at actually the entire planet and the amount of money invested in telling you why new technology is valuable, it's probably in the trillions, right? It's just like an unthinkable amount of money. Like you look at global GDP and the percentage of that's tech and the percentage of that's marketing, whatever. It's in the many hundreds of billions or whatever the number is. And so, there's very, very few dollars spent on highlighting the invisible ink, on highlighting the invisible amputations. A little. It's like Tristan Harris. I don't know what his budget is at that Center for Humane Tech and, maybe some YouTubers. There's not much. It's effectively zero when compared to the, marketing industrial complex or whatever that supports new technologies. And so, and then the costs are also felt they're not priced into the market or something. There's something I'm like dancing around here that I think is pretty profound. Like they're just born by the individual. And but when you can have a very quiet and still moment as an individual and notice these things, you can carve out these analog practices or whatever. But when you handwrite, there's nothing spur there. It's like upstream versus downstream. You're swimming upstream in that moment, and you suddenly realize, hey, swimming upstream, it kind of feels good. I'm kind of getting a workout. Like it's better for me. But every force in the world is pushing you back downstream. And right, isn't there something there where it's like, and I think it'll necessarily be that way. It doesn't really pay the bills to point out these invisible amputations, but it's very human. And like, I feel like that we're onto something here. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as the bursts downstream get more and more extreme with AI, with VR, with crypto, with all these things, I think there will be more, you can call it Luddite, not Luddite reactions, but like like I went totally upstream after having this downstream kind of pull, you know? So I think you'll see a revival in typewriters and handwriting.
Yeah.
At least that's what it triggered in me.
Luddite's not it because Luddite is a full antagonism. I mean, Luddites burn the looms,
Yeah, nuke the factories.
yeah, it's not that. It's so not that. I mean, like it's so obvious like technology is so agnostic and so ambivalent. Like we're sitting here today able to have this great conversation and frankly even have any sort of friendship relationship at all, because we work together virtually. We became friends
Yep.
virtually. Yes, we've seen each other in person, but it all started virtual. In so many ways, none of this would be happening without tech, without the virtual. So Luddite is such a false dichotomy. It's so easy and it's so lazy and it's so easy to just
Yeah.
say oh, there. And the thing is, people follow their incentives. People are incentivized to promote this stuff. Well, if they hear any resistance or opposition, they're gonna say, "Hey, there's a bunch of Luddites. Forget that." No, there's a really nuanced
Right.
thing here. But dude, I was laughing at myself last night. Here's a study in contrast. Okay, so Monday night, Tuesday night, I had some free time. I wasn't seeing my girlfriend. I wasn't seeing my friends. I just had some free time, and so Monday night I did do some Chinese lessons. Great, using technology. Then I had about like 2 hours before I was going to bed, and I ended up staying up for 3 or 4 hours. And I went on a YouTube rabbit hole, and I was watching YouTube videos. And then there was this live stream. This Barstool Sports is this website, and they were doing a live stream. They had to hit 41 free throws in a row, and there was like 35,000 people watching this at like midnight Pacific time. They stayed up all night and for 15 hours. All these guys drove in, NBA players, and it was the NBA record, and they finally did it 15 hours in. And I'm sort of embarrassed to even admit I was watching this. It's sort of like this preposterous thing they're trying, but it's sort of like embarrassing to admit that I was watching it for like a while. It was like kind of
Yeah.
interesting, but I was just sucked in this rabbit hole and watching other YouTube, and I went to bed late and I was tired. It was just kind of like you wake up, kind of like what the hell was I doing? Went in the rabbit hole again, and that happens. It's not always the live stream, but it happens. That happens to me. Last night, for whatever reason, I didn't open my computer at night, and I had 1 hour of Chinese, and I closed my computer, and I was going through Emerson. I was doing, and you can almost see how calming this was to my brain. You have this beautiful notebook, and just be right,
Yeah.
remarkable. With the exercise of self-trust, new strength will appear, the deep force of instinct within us all. It was so rich. My brain was in such a flow state. And then I ended that and I was laughing. How different. Am I really the same person who on Monday night is watching this like a bunch of like overweight bloggers like huck up free throws at midnight in Chicago? And then the next night I'm like rapturously alive reading Ralph Waldo Emerson. Can that really be the same person? One day
Yeah.
separated? But like every force in the world is pushing me towards YouTube, the YouTube engineers, the designers of the iPad, the people at Barso trying to get my eyeball. And they don't give a shit about me or the rich inner landscape inside of me. They're harvesting this incredibly precious thing for this slight, drop of revenue in their annual bucket. Whereas I'm sitting here reading Emerson and I'm intensely and richly alive and so on fire and so in the moment and present and all these things we hold dear. And yet there's no cultural force anywhere that's pushing me towards this in any meaningful way. And so it's just this paradox. And like, man, I don't know exactly what to do about it, but God, I feel it strongly in my bones. And our conversation is really kind of sparking this in me. So I'm sure you have some thoughts, but that's just something I've been reflecting on.
Yeah. I think no one is kind of safe from the allure of whatever random niche you could find online. Um, like I probably watched every single Vision Pro review. You know,
Yeah.
I was on YouTube for too long in the last week. Um, and I feel like there's things that I typically will balk at. Like, oh, I have no interest in watching this show. But then I put on the Vision Pro, it's like, huh, now that I can watch this at, big, maybe I'll check it out. And so there's like a slippage that happens where I think the more seductive media gets, like the more likely you're going to be drawn into the vortex.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, interesting. Totally. That's the thing. Like, I'm almost, I'll go try Vision Pro, but I know if I own it, like, I'm sort of admitting how addicted I can get slipping into YouTube rabbit hole when it's just on my, iPad mini or my iPhone or whatever. And that, I'm like holding it with my hand. It's not like the best experience. Whereas if it's like in, full sublime, transcendent vision.
Yeah, we're defenseless. That's like the word sublime to me is defenseless to wonder. And now it's instead of mountains, it's digital wonder that you have with you whenever you can think it. It's very easy to build an addiction response to it because of how easy it is.
But if you did it like an hour a week or something, like there's a scope. It's not evil. This is why it's not
No,
Luddite.
it's not evil. There's a way to do it. And
Thing.
so
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
the way that I set it up is like I'm trying to be as analog as possible. And then I'm trying to like build a kind of shape to my week. And
Mm,
so, for example, when you're just in computer world on YouTube, sometimes you don't know what day it is. Like every day is kind of the same. And so I'm like, all right, Monday night is my YouTube and podcast night. I'm
mm.
going to go through it and I'm going to watch it all. And that's it. Like Tuesday is piano day. Wednesday, I'm going to watch a movie, right? I'm not going to scroll Netflix every night and just find some shit to put on. I have a list of the 20 best movies that I haven't seen. I'm going to very intentionally watch a movie every Wednesday night. Like there's ways you can build a relationship with media, but like you're saying, everything is pushing you to have it always on, bigger screens,
Yeah.
kind of like uncritically, It kind of takes your autonomy away, with just convenience and shock and gimmick, Um,
I
that's
think. Oh, go ahead.
I had one more thought where I really love the phrase marketing industrial complex. I never heard of that. Um, but what sucks to me is that like the internet ideally is like, oh, it's this peer-to-peer environment where, the people can come together and call bullshit on what they're saying. But all the incentives of that system go towards people hyping it and making stunts in public. Let me drive a Tesla. Let me go in a pool. Let me take a shower with the thing on. Let me just destroy the thing for views, right? With a hammer, right? Um, or let me just show disbelief and shock and talk about how wonderful it is. All that stuff gets you views and helps you grow your audience. People are growing audiences like crazy over talking about the Vision Pro. And so it's not just the like the marketing incentives, they're not just from the top. It's the whole landscape kind of contributes to this like hype and illusion in a way.
And 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 there's such a little appetite for the point you're making about the richness of handwriting because everything's polarized on the internet. So that's largely going to be, you're going to get the Luddite accusation. Whatever. I mean, maybe there's some YouTubers who are sort of, doing that and building an audience around that. But does that make sense? Like, it's also because here's the thing, the benefits are obvious and the drawbacks are subtle. This is true with the legislation point, but this is also true with, like, it makes for a really good video to show the benefits of this thing, and so then that's what's going to get people's attention. It becomes this magnet for attention, all these sexy benefits and these subtle personal costs. They're very hard to convey in a way that, because I don't know how to put it. Like they're subtle. They're also like unique to, like the things you value that lead you to do this handwriting. Like most of the world just isn't going to value, if that makes sense. So it's just like, it's very hard to get momentum upstream, basically. I mean, maybe it's kind of obvious, but it's just very hard because they're not like the costs aren't legible to most people, but they're so true to your subjective experience of life and to mine or whatever. And like, it's, yeah, it's just hard to, I'm trying to precisely put it. It's like we're fighting a losing battle trying to like in a one-on-one conversation. By the way, like you didn't make that point about the handwriting the first 2 minutes of us talking. Like it's like a long multi-hour conversation we're having in the context of knowing you and then having this long, thoughtful conversation, like this point comes out and I really resonated. It turns out I was doing this handwriting thing too, but it's like, it doesn't come across. Like, how do you put the value of, the subtle value of handwriting your logs in a thumbnail or like a YouTube type? Like it just doesn't.
Right. Right. And it's like the convenience is a whole paradigm. And for you to question like the Vision Pro doing it, it's like it's not just criticizing the device, it's actually the whole identity built on this kind of like shaky foundation.
Yeah. And you're not, there are people like there are like reactionary movements online. Like there's the trad movement. You see these people on Twitter or whatever, and they're like,
Yeah.
but that is also not subtle. Like that is its own reactionary thing that really surprises people and then gets following that way. I don't know. Somehow, to me at least, I feel like the point we're both trying to make is more subtle and is more fragile. Almost, it's like not this thing that you can shout from the rooftops and a ton of people are going to immediately agree with you. But I think deep down, one thing we can do is just by talking about this and writing about this, like give people the vocabulary. Like you gave me new vocabulary today. Every advancement comes with an invisible imputation that's subtle and hard to see. That I now am equipped with that vocabulary. And then I've had this conversation dozens of times, and I've never had that economical of a phrase to use to describe what's happening here. So now I have that. And then I'll have another conversation with somebody and that'll spark something else. And so the first step almost, it's just like building your raft to like push upstream. It's like equipping people with the vocabulary to even see that this is happening in the first place.
Right. It's like language is a tool where we can kind of carve and defend some type of reality you could live. But in the end, like something like the trad movement, it's not just words, but it's actually visual symbols and videos and ideas all laced together, and it becomes a meme. Just as how a lot of the Vision Pro stuff can be a meme.
Yeah,
I think what we're getting at is it's very hard to make memes of Emerson or of handwriting or of the human soul. Like you can't meme the soul, and that's kind of why it's always going to be upstream.
It's
Those things that can be reduced to a one-liner gimmick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just whatever the meat. I mean, the same thing happens. It all tracks to politics, right? Because like the actual like true statesmen have these like very, frankly, like nuanced or complex views on things, and those just are illegible to them. It's either you're a bleeding heart liberal or a crazy backwards like MAGA Republican. Like it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like there's something here where just like any sort of subtext or subtlety just gets completely erased when it's not delivered in a personal or smaller setting. It's on like the scale of the internet. So it's sort of interesting. Hey, one thing I have a question about is I saw something on Substack. You wrote for a digital Zine, I think it's called, like an online magazine, and I think the premise was like humans grappling with technological change or something to that effect. And you wrote something that was included, and it was like this online publication. And I think there's a physical version and a digital version. I frankly haven't read any of it, but I came across this in December, I think, and I texted you about it. I think it was just, can you talk about what that is? Because like to me, that seems like at least some effort of people to really try to grapple with these invisible amputations, perhaps, but maybe I have that wrong.
Yeah, I have it right here actually. It's called A Library of Possibilities for Reimagining the Web. So its focus really is on social media, right? Specifically, it's not all technology, but it's kind of information and social information. And I guess the central thesis, I had a neat framework for this, but I need to revisit it. But it's basically how the internet wasn't really built in a way to foster human connection. It's kind of built for virality and consumption, for vanity metrics. And then Sari, who's kind of in charge of it, she's close with Alex DeBranco. I feel like there's part of this kind of return to this kind of original internet, where it's not feed based, where it's kind of quirky and weird, and you kind of get lost in these rabbit holes built by just a person who has a unique way of seeing things. And it's very like, it doesn't have this flattening effect that you see when it's like, oh, all the thread boys on Twitter, they're all talking the same way. Like you can go to some of these old websites and they're one of a kinds. Um, and yeah, I consider this to be like a social media counterculture
Mm.
where like we've peaked at TikTok and that is just like the hopefully the end of a paradigm. Like, can it get any more, I don't know, addictive than that? Like
Well,
like
talking spatial computing, I think would.
well, so it's funny because TikTok is kind of the the pinnacle of addictive media, and then the spatial computing is the hardware, and then when you get into AI, all at every different front, we're going to some territory where the amputations are starting to shift from invisible to visible, and people are having these like freakouts where it's like, damn, like I know a lot of people are putting their phones in black and white now, or they're just like getting rid of their phone,
Yeah,
or
yes
like
and no. Like, yes, some people do that. I did that for a time, but like in any meaningful number, no. I mean, like people you're around perhaps are more likely to, but like I still think the resistance is quite futile at this point relative to the change.
momentum.
I mean, that's my, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'd love to be proved wrong on that, but that's my sense, right? Like, it's just, okay, yes, there's perhaps a bit more pushback, maybe because the Vision Pro, it's so visual. It is that unsettling visual feeling of somebody's face being eaten by this thing or whatever. But man, I just, you know what's funny? I want to push back a bit because I'd be hesitant to say we've hit the pinnacle. I mean, it's kind of true with anything, but depending on your frame of reference, like in a sense, we're just
Sure.
getting, Taylor, our friend Taylor Forman makes this point about hyper porn, which is not just pornography. I mean, it is, but it's more so like hyper porn. I think his term for that is just any addictive stimuli, like web-based addictive stimuli. I mean, it could be pornography, it could be games, really addictive games, infinite, TikTok, YouTube, pick your poison. Like it's all there. And he basically has this point. What is it? Cyborg Rhapsody and is like the positive side. Like basically, if you can harness AI and the VR, like you can live like one has never lived before. It can be remarkable and infinite creativity and all these things. If the hyperporn doesn't get you, and it's coming for all of it. It's like, do you see what I'm saying? Like I
Yeah.
don't think it's the pinnacle. I think it opens up a whole new frontier. And
Right.
there's very few nefarious actors. It's just like the market is this intelligence of its own that just like weasels its way into any new possibility space. It just runs wild. Does that make sense? Like it's not,
Yeah.
that's what people get wrong. Like people who are talking about like, bro, we're late stage capitalism and all this evil, whatever. It's not. It's just people who are locally following their incentive patterns to better off them and their families. And then the net is like all of our attention gets gobbled up, and like there's no evil actor at YouTube or TikTok. We don't know in China, but no, but like there's no like evil actor. You see what I'm saying? But like, of course, this new affordance will lead to all sorts of new ways to consume people's attention, and it will only get
Right.
more extreme, I think.
The incentives, Terrence McKenna has this word, he calls it an attractor at the end of time, and that's like a very grand way of putting it. But he says we generally think in terms of like, oh, we start from a big bang and move forward. But he would say there's actually these kind of forces that are just sucking us towards it. Um, and you could say that like markets are this force that are pushing us towards basically like absolute efficiency. And you can kind of apply that to anything. And all the incentives get more and more shaped towards that thing. And you're right, TikTok isn't the peak, right? It's nowhere near the peak. The peak is going to be an orgasm button, right? And what that means is you don't even have to watch porn anymore. You can put on that Morpheus one. That headband's not just for lucid dreaming. It can identify spatially any brain state. So you put the thing on and you say record, and then you have an orgasm, and it knows where that happens. And you can then just hit the button, and it stimulates that without even having the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're kind of in that, like the most dystopian thing is like you can just be kind of like safe digital heroin where it can't kill you, but you can zone some form of happiness or ecstasy in your head and just effectively be paralyzed in complete rapture. And what this is all pointing to is, do you know the story of Faust by Goethe?
Yeah, I'm aware of it. I'm not terribly familiar. I'd love to hear how this
Yeah,
relates.
I've known the term Faustian bargain, and I
Yes, yeah.
understand it in more detail now. And basically, it's this intellectual who's kind of disgruntled, and he wants infinite power, infinite pleasure, and all the stuff. And he finds Mephistopheles, who's like an agent of the devil, and he says, "Yeah, I can give you literally everything you want. You'll be able to I don't know the details, but think up anything and just access that pleasure. But here's the deal. If you ever get to a state that is so good that you wish to live in it eternally, you'll have the ability to do that. And once you're in that eternal state of pleasure, the devil comes and takes your soul. You know? So it's like it's giving you the ability to access um way beyond human limitations. But there comes to the point where you just like escape time into infinite pleasure. At that point, your soul is gone because you're just in rapture. So it
Mhm.
kind of equates the peak of satisfaction to effectively eternal hell, which is kind of like a paradox.
Mm. Modern Devil is cheap dopamine. This comes up for me, like because that's a Naval quote. But like, I mean, this is the devil. Like I've actually had this thought before. Like this type of distraction. It's sort of like this modern devil. So it's really interesting to tie it to Faust and all that because I totally see it. Right? It's like Taylor also talks about the story from the Bible where the devil tempts Christ with like I basically some form of like short term worldly empire. And Christ says no. He's tempted by the devil and he says no. Like what my father promises me is far greater than this because it's like this local win, this local blissed out whatever.
Right.
You lose the bigger picture. I mean, this is practical. It goes all the way up and all the way down. It goes to if you have 10 free minutes and you can spend it, taking a walk or talking to a loved one versus just watching the next video in the algorithm. It's sort of that fractal that's like the zoomed all the way in. You can zoom all the way out to like all of society, like getting subsumed into these like technology. That makes sense. Like at every level, this is
Yeah.
the
Whether
chat.
it's work, porn, addiction, media, there's all these little,
Dude,
oh, let me just optimize for that. And then you lose sight of
candy
everything
bar.
else.
Like if you love Reese's, that's my favorite candy. It's so good, and like I eat it occasionally. But when I eat it, I just have this thought sometimes. I'm like, this is so preposterously delicious, and I could just eat 25 of these a day. And I would
Yeah.
actually, in each local moment, be way like happier or whatever. But then you zoom out and you upend your whole life. You look horrible and you die early and like it's not worth it at all. But God, man, yeah. It's just I brought up the magazine. So first of all, the Faust connection is awesome. So thank you for that. I've actually never gotten the full gist of that, and so it makes me want to read that. But the magazine I felt was interesting because like we need people intentionally grappling with this stuff and at least talking about this and asking these questions. I know some of this exists in some different places, but I think it's hard because I think the pushback can start to sound familiar and kind of trite. Like if you were to tell somebody in a conversation, hey man, like Instagram or Facebook is like or smartphones
Yeah.
are like smoking. Your eyes goes
Yeah.
over. It's not an interesting point to make anymore. Except when you really think about that point, it's like profound and it's actually fascinating. It's kind of true of a lot of cliches. Like cliches are cliches because they're so true that they get overused and they get hollowed out,
Mm.
right? Like I was a kid, I was always like, how the hell do people smoke for decades, killing themselves? And all of a sudden, and that's, maybe what people will say in the future. But to tie it to sort of a broader point, what you make the point about Faust, like I do think this is like if we think this stuff is addicting now, it's gonna be so much more addicting, and people are gonna be so helpless to fall into these sort of rabbit hole, pleasure rabbit holes or whatever. Um, and like the market. I think the really interesting point is that the market like wants this. There's no nefarious actors for the most part. It's just the market as its own force, like is just forcing this forward, and it hollows people out. Like people are left as these husks of themselves. There's an evacuation of interiority. Interiority. There's not that much
Wow.
depth for most people. There's an evacuation of interiority where these
I love
husks.
that term.
Yeah, I mean it's from John O'Donohue. I'll acknowledge it, but man, it's so good, right? It's like there. This is also from him. I've used this in my writing, but it's from him. He says there's the neon lights of the culture and the candlelit world of the soul. And the market
Wow.
fuels the neon lights of culture. Right? You can see it metaphorically, like Vision Pro, tech, all the features. That's the neon lights of culture. The candlelit world of the soul, it's like the candlelight allows you to see the invisible ink of all the drawbacks. The candlelight allows you to see the invisible, the candlelight makes the invisible amputations made known. When you're handwriting your logs and it feels good and you're not sure why, that's the candlelit world of the soul. When I'm watching this bullshit video of like free throws in Chicago and staying up late and not sleeping well because of that, that's the neon lights of culture. When I'm writing rapture sentences from a guy who died 150 years ago in my notebook and feeling so alive, that's the candlelit world of the soul. And the neon lights are legible to the market and the candlelit soul is not. And that's a problem because that means that anyone preserve the candlelight is fragile and the neon, oh, dude, here's an image for you. Picture like a high school football game, like Friday Night Lights, like you hit like the switch and boom, 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 all the like all the lights come on. And then you just have this little candle that you're trying to preserve against this flood of infinite flood of lights. Good luck, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, good luck, really. And that's what we have to do. How the hell do we do it?
Well, it's the kind of thing where once you obtain that knowledge, like once you know about the candlelight versus the neon lights, it's kind of just in your court. Like it's very hard to convince others, and
Well,
there's kind of like the activist versus the artist, and the activist thinks they can actually like sabotage the lights and spread the candles. The artist is like the world is going to shit. Like I just need to make art about candles and whatever it is, like whoever wants to find that will.
I'll tell you what's not the answer is to take a bunch of candles and toss them into a Waymo car and watch it burn. That's a losing play. Did you see that on Twitter the other day? Like a bunch of people said burn a Waymo. They do. They literally. I thought it was like a video of Baghdad. It was they took a Waymo in the streets of San Francisco, surrounded it. I mean, metaphorically took their candles, but probably took lighter fluid. They lit a Waymo self-driving car in the streets of San Francisco. It's remarkable. So that's not the play. That's a losing play. Okay, that much I know. Now, what's not a losing play? Here's the thing. If we extend this metaphor further, I think this is really interesting. Yes, it's a candle, but if you keep that candle burning long enough and you add kindling and logs, it actually becomes a raging bonfire. What Emerson is, okay, here's Emerson, most of Emerson's writing, okay? He lived from 1803 to 1881. So in that 7-8 year stretch, he had a candle. Dude, I mean, it's too perfect. His biography is literally titled The Mind on Fire, okay? So let's really take this seriously. So he had this candle. It was burning inside of him. He had an uncommon fire within. That's often how I describe my study of Chinese. I have an uncommon fire within. He had an uncommon fire within, and he did something about it. He used that candle to light little sticks, and then again, and it's not sexy at first. You're slowly putting on logs. Like that's what we taught at Rite of Passage for all those years. You're putting on logs, and it's slow, and they're really small at first because the big ones want light right away. But if you go long enough, I used to go to Boy Scout camp, and the last night there'd be these huge bonfires, and they were 20 feet tall, all these logs stacked up, and so it would just come alive in this remarkable fire that you could see from 10 miles away. Emerson, this book is a bonfire that Emerson lit in the 1830s, 40s, and 50s. Okay? And here in 2024, it's still burning. It's massive. It's like the size of Mount Everest. Okay? But like most people don't know about it. It's sort of drowned out by just the infinite Friday night lights that douse the entire planet in light, in artificial light right now,
And what's crazy is fire can spread and artificial light can't.
Yeah. Ooh, fuck, dude. There you go. That's good. That's good. Yo, that's so good. That's right. It can, because I have my own candle and it gets dim sometimes when I'm watching the Barstool video. It's pretty dim. And then I reread Emerson. It ignites me. I was ignited last night reading this in a way that my senses were totally dulled the day before. And I want to tell you about what Emerson wrote. It's just this compulsion I feel because it's so good. Here's another one. There is social media and we're like sharing things, but I've always liked this metaphor. I used to use this to describe drinking, but like the sharing on Instagram or something like that. It's a what's that word? Simulacrum, or it's not the real thing. It's like pouring bug spray on a fire. It burns up real big and then it goes down and you're left with nothing. Whereas when you build a bonfire, the logs become embers that then fuel the fire into perpetuity. Anyways, there's a long metaphor here, but I think there's something here.
I love light. Or I love artificial light as as a symbol because I had this reflection in Greece, right? And there's a jet lag when you go to Europe, and I was like up in the middle of the night. Like I was up every night, 1 to 4 a.m. Just writing in darkness. And I'm like, wow, this is kind of peaceful. And we forget that artificial light, the ability to flip a switch, is a technology that fundamentally changed our existence, right? Like usually, like it actually meant something for the sun go down, and you couldn't really function. It was a forced downness. You actually had to use candles in a very dim way to get around. And during that paradigm until the 1870s, most people they went to bed earlier and they actually slept in a biphasic way. Like
Mm.
it was normal for every person in society to wake up between like 1 to 3 a.m. and they would play games with the candles, they would have sex, they would read. That was just a cultural thing that everyone had this moment of quiet stillness with their family or with themselves. And
Wow.
we've lost that. Like it literally changed our sleep patterns from biphasic to monophasic. And then electric light turns into TVs, and then TVs comes into our phones, and then the phones go onto our eyes, and eventually it goes into the brain where you have the brain chip that is just sending light signals to your eyes, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
that's
and
fascinating.
there's something interesting about light and fire and how like it's kind of in on both sides of religious symbology where like when Buddhists talk about like these like certain meditations, you actually visualize white light. So like pure white light is kind of pure, but then like the devil in hell is actually fire. Um,
Mm,
you know,
mm.
so it's like I love the whole language of light, artificial versus fire, and it's worth like consolidating everything, you
I
know?
think I like neon. It's funny. I've always had this disdain for neon lights. Sorry, really not neon, like fluorescent lights, which is sort of like neon lights of culture, but it's really fluorescent. Okay, like for example, like I went to UVA, University of Virginia, and there's the lawns, like Jefferson's lawn. He made it. It's the most. It's not literally lit by fireplaces. There are some fireplaces, but there's these beautiful incandescent lights, like this warm, glowing light. I always loved it. Like my apartment at night, I have these warm, incandescent lights. And the thing I always contrast that with is like a dentist's office, just like just like the fluorescent light of like it's just so devoid of soul, right? And so to me, the neon lights culture, fluorescent, I kind of equate those two. And then there's something very powerful on the other side, which is the candlelit world of the soul, or the even just incandescent, that warm glow. You know, that warm orange glow. And I think it's no accident that I mean, that's the sun. That's the center of my phone, screensaver, the sun. Like the
Yeah.
Emerson says, like your observation of something is a fact, like the sun. Like the sun is this like sort of divine, essentially divine source of everything, right? It's like this divine source of energy or whatever, effectively divine, right? And I think when you have this insight you want to share, it's like I sometimes call it. I've talked to you about this before. Like it's your scoop of the sun that then you take and shine out to others. But that's what fuels your candle. It's almost like your candle is fueled by some divine source. We know not where it comes from, God, the universe, whatever. Okay, well, let's just call that coming from the sun. It's like there's the sun, and then there's like these, earthly manifestations of that divine
We're the
light.
microcosm of the sun.
Yeah, exactly. Well put. But then you just have these lights of culture that it just blinds every. I mean, it's so beautiful. It's like the dark of night, and then this little thing, and then yeah, just
Overexposed, yeah.
overexposed. Yeah, it makes the candlelight seem pointless, not special. I don't know all these things. It just totally it robs the soul or something of it. Like I just think there's something there, and I think most people, dude, like don't even realize that this is a phenomenon that's happening. Like you just it becomes man. There's a great line from this book I read. It was on existentialism, but it was saying how like I wish I could pull it up. I might pull it up, but it's we live like almost all our lives are like secondary. Like life is like mediated through media, and then most of our life is just like the substance of our life is like, did you see the game? Did you see what Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift did? Like that's not even your thing. That's just like this illusory thing that's like out there. Does that make sense? Like that's all just like these shadows cast by I mean, sort of the Plato's cave thing, but it's like these shadows cast by like the neon lights of culture versus like the thing that's the mechanical, which reveals you and your friends and your relationships and your highs and your lows and your hopes and your fears and your dreams, right? And the rest is this, thing manufactured out of the bones of a dying world or whatever. Like, yeah, dude, I mean, this is like one of the key ideas of my life, I feel like, is like turning back inwards towards the the candle and away from but it's really hard because I think the thing I've realized is the market propels the fluorescent lights. And there's no market forces, or very few market forces propelling the candle. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think at the scale of markets and how one can even go about controlling markets or creating products that are kind of like it's such a different scale. And I feel like the first step is kind of just like reclaiming your own sense of how like what is your relationship to that flame. And I found that like shifting to a mostly analog, but by assuming the default of what I do is analog and then only going into the computer, like we can't talk through a piece of paper, so we're here now with artificial light, and it's worth it. But like after I do this, I'm gonna go off my computer and look at my pad and be like, all right, what do I do? What do I do next? And I think the problem is if you trust the computer to be your primary source of managing your life, even though the internet is like an amazing thing, by having the computer be your default, it's inevitably intertangled with all of the distractions, all the neon lights, and you're going to just be in the proximity of these things, and then you're going to get sucked in, and the currents are going to be getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So I think there's more of a case to be analog and then just be very specific on when and why you engage with the computer.
Be really thoughtful about it. Yep. And I think I don't know if everyone, like, if I were to talk to Tiago about this, I think he would say, what are you talking about? Like, just don't get distracted, do your work, Evernote or whatever tool for Second Brain is great. Like, basically, I think, I don't know, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I think he might say something like, you're kind
Yeah,
of being
like, don't
Luddite.
go on YouTube if it's a problem. Yeah,
But the thing is, like, it also isn't a one size fits all solution. It's like a nutrition advice or something. Like, because we're having this conversation, I know that these rabbit holes are both something that we struggle with to some degrees. For me, it's extreme. I often wonder like what percentile I'm in of like degree to which you struggle with these rabbit holes. For me, it's extremely. I now have designed my environment on my phone and computers and stuff to limit that, but I still fall into it despite that. So like, just to qualify this, like I just think there are some or maybe a lot of people who don't struggle with it to a degree. I call it my daily war of abundance. I'm at war every day to fight back and sort of harness my attention in a way that serves the things I actually truly value. So I just want to put that out there that I think different people struggle with this to different degrees, and some might push back on this and say, "What the hell, guys? Just have a little more willpower." I've tried. It doesn't like it's a fight for me, and it sounds like it might be for you. So it's like, and I know we're not the only ones. And I
yeah.
think people are even less aware and just sort of drifting along.
I think awareness is a part of it too. I think some people are more addicted than us, and they don't even perceive it
They don't see
as
that.
wrong. And everyone in their life tells them that this is how like, we should be talking about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. We should be talking about Severance. Like it is the cultural norm to be kind of in the grips of this. Like
Yeah.
um, the idea of the flame is kind of like not even really in the no one resonates with that emotionally. It's just not in a show, you know?
Yeah. Well, also, there's like we have an implicit shared assumption because of how we know each other and what we did with Rite of Passage is that it's a good thing to create things as a person. Like you have
Right.
a almost obligation to share your perspective of the world. The world's a richer place. Your life is far richer. And I think a lot of people, frankly, just don't share that assumption at all. I mean, people in close inner circles don't necessarily share that assumption. And so, uh, yeah, like I don't know. It's hard to not come across as preachy in a way if I'm prescribing, hey, well, then you ought not to spend so much time on Instagram because I don't know. It's a bit of a fine line sometimes, like talking about this stuff. I think all you can do is like demonstrate it yourself, and then like find kindred spirits who resonate, and maybe like politely bring this. But that makes sense. Like when I crusade on this stuff too hard with like people I know in my personal life and stuff, like I think sometimes it can ruffle feathers because the
Yeah.
implication is that, oh, well, you're sort of wasting your time if you're always on Instagram, you're always on TikTok, you're always watching all the latest shows. I do some of that too, by the way, but I strive to harness my time in a healthier way. And they would just say, well, why do you gotta be so productive? Like, just kind of enjoy your life. Like, I work hard at work. I just want to chill when I have some free time. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that kind of comes up.
Yeah, I think our identities, it's very easy for the identity to be uh, defined by our consumption patterns. And so if you
Yeah,
attack someone's consumption patterns, you're basically, uh, it comes across as judging their whole way of existence, you
yeah,
know?
I think that's right.
Um, and I feel like, I don't know, like, I was talking with Charlie earlier today, and she's like, she's writing her memoir. I'm just like talking her through some things. We're doing coaching, and like, she's very much against, uh, like telling the reader what to do. It's like, oh, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. And she's very much like, all right, I need to just tell my story, and through it, people will understand that, you know, um, she's this phrase, totally fine train wreck. Like someone will just be like drinking way too much and living to other people's standards, and at the surface they seem fine, but they're actually a wreck. And it's like she's kind of writing for that person, but you can't like call someone out for being that. It's like, hey, I'm here too. Like it's almost like if you come out and be like, look, I'm addicted to this stuff. Like people are more likely to listen to the stories you tell
Yeah,
than
yeah,
if you
yeah, yeah.
come from a preachy point of view, you know?
Because you're not coming from a position of essentially I'm better than you. I've figured this out. You ought to as well. I'm I'm in the trenches every day fighting this stuff. Anyone else? Like, this is what's kind of working for me, but it's a daily slog. And it kind of honestly, I think I'm not saying Charlie had like I don't think she had like severe addiction, but I think a lot of addiction memoirs are sort of that posture. Like, yo, it's brutal out there for a crack addict or whatever. Like, this is what I went through here. Maybe you can relate. Do you see what I'm saying? So maybe that's like like you're saying, it's like it's a little more humble to come at it from that angle or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Have you ever read have you read David Foster Wallace recently?
Not for a while.
Got it. I haven't really gotten into Infinite Jest. It is so dense. I really am enjoying his essays. I'm learning a lot from them, but
Yeah.
um, from what I hear, just like Infinite Jest gets into a lot of his addictions, and the way he writes it, it's almost like he glorifies the addiction, but in kind of like a way that's usefully ironic.
Mm.
Like he pushes the addiction to extreme, and it's like he kind of worships the addiction, but
Mm.
you kind of sense that it's not like oh, this is a problem, and we all face this, and we see ourselves through him, you know?
Nice. Yeah, I've heard that. I think that's like I know one of the big ideas that there's some program that's so enjoyable you just can't stop watching, which kind of is like TikTok and a Vision Pro,
Yeah.
basically. In
Yeah.
a way, you know? Yeah, man. Yeah, no, I haven't. Another guy though, by the way, who when I read his stuff or to take notes on or something, like you just talk about a bonfire that got set, and then he just happened to step into the bonfire and never left,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But like the bonfire kind of consumed him. I mean, in all seriousness, it did. But man, that thing's burning bright. Like I think it's a nice way to think about like that's the why, if nothing else. And everybody's type of candle or whatever is different, but at least for you and I, really resonate with writers, man. I'm so thankful for the people who've lit the path up till now because I can go surround myself with all these books. These are all, bonfires. They're still burning. A lot of people are dead who wrote those books behind me. Uh,
Right.
Donahue's dead. There's so many examples. Um, man, what do you think of that magazine project? Because it was one of the few things I've seen. It's like, okay, here's like a group of people who have linked arms and they're like forging upstream together is my best impression. Do you agree? And did that thing have legs or was it kind of a one-off?
There's a software. There's like a social media network that was kind of in the book. I see it as it was a way to the magazine promoted the product. It's something I'm looking to jump into. Alex DeBrenko is working with this company now. It's called Sublime, and it's a kind of a new architecture for social media. Um, so I hope there's more zines. I think I would love to have a like a yearly edition of this like social media counterculture. That would be sick.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was associated with this product.
Right. Yeah.
Is it called? It's no. There's a lot of. Okay, I'll have to look through it after. I think there's a few different. Sublime's a pretty common name for tools. It looks like. So I'll have to dig that up. But yeah. I mean, I know you had that group. Was it Plexus or something? There was a group. You were Plexus. Remember, you had this group that was like building.
Yeah, Plexus.
They had an interesting email where one of the co-founders left and they sent an email like, I don't know, it's like I hadn't heard from them in a long time. And then out of nowhere, it was like, hey, our team member left. I was like, okay, got it. I don't know. It was just sort of, I was like, but what's going on with the product? Basically, I'm not in the day to day, so I didn't know the different names of the guys. And so I hadn't heard from them in a while. And I got this email out of the clouds. I was like, okay, cool. It's good to hear that he's doing some new things, but like, what's going on basically? So you were pretty
Right.
bold about it. I think you met those guys.
Yeah. I've met up with the founder. He's in New York City. Um, yeah, I I really like the vision. I think it seems like it's hard to say. Like they made a big switch. They went from text to audio. Whereas instead of so basically it's an audio app now where you talk into it and then what comes back, this is like a chorus of voices. So you can just say what you're thinking and then it'll match you with people who have said things that are semantically similar to what you've said. Um, and it's cool. Like I feel like when I do use it, it is neat to just walk through the city and riff what I'm thinking into it, and then you can see what other people are thinking in relation to it. It's kind of like an async conversation. Um, but somehow the shift from audio to audio made it hard for me to use in my everyday life. Like I'm not always in a place where I can just, you know, um, preach, what I'm thinking. It's like it's a certain thing to just be like really expressing yourself out loud.
Eh, I don't like consuming audio nearly as much as reading. You can read much faster. I mean, some context, sure, I'll listen to a podcast, but yeah, I would just think that it's an interesting switch. I'm sure there's a lot of context there as to why they did that, but I'm
Yeah, I think the choice was that you can hear the texture of somebody's voice, and it's like, oh, it's a real person behind here, and I can like kind of absorb it. But I find that when someone is riffing in audio, usually the thought isn't structured, and it can be kind of rambly and cover many topics, and so you don't have skimmability.
yeah,
It's another trade-off where it's like, oh, like maybe it's good. Maybe it fosters presence if you actually have to sit and listen to somebody. But if you're rushing, you're not going to want that experience. You're going to want to skim and find the most relevant piece of text and connect with
yeah,
it.
I agree. Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's like it's kind of like a voice note. It's very personal. We don't know somebody at all, and you're sort of getting their unstructured audio. Yeah, it feels odd to me in a way, but hey, we'll keep an eye on them and see what they're doing. So, hey, one other thing, I know we can wrap here, but uh, I had just a while ago pulled up this quote. This is from a book on existentialism called Irrational Man. One of the best books I've read, really. It's an incredible book, but um, keep in mind this was written in the 50s, and it's talking about the effect of newspapers on people and the depth of the individual or lack thereof. Okay. So I'll just read a quick
Cool.
thing here and then I'm just curious to hear your thoughts and then we can wrap. But um, it's two paragraphs. So he says, journalism has become a great god of the period, and gods have a way of ruthlessly and demonically taking over their servitors. In thus becoming a state of mind, journalism enables people to deal with life more and more at second hand. Information usually consists of half truths, and knowledgeability becomes a substitute for real knowledge. I would say like visceral firsthand knowledge. Okay. Now this is the key part. Every man walks around with a pocket digest of culture in his head. It becomes more and more difficult to distinguish the secondhand from the real thing until most people end up forgetting there's such a distinction. The very success of the technique engenders a whole style of life for the period which subsists purely on externals. What lies behind those externals, the human person in its uniqueness and its totality, dwindles to a shadow and a ghost.
Jeez.
Mic drop.
Who said that?
It's a book called Irrational Man by William Barrett, and this is from page 33. This floored me when I read it about 2 years ago. Floored me, stopped me in my tracks. Because as with all this stuff, as with Postman, as with McLuhan, as with all these media observers, these very prescient media observers, what they say is this extreme problem is coming to bear in a antiquated media environment. He's talking about newspapers, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Newspapers. It was practically scholarly if you read a newspaper. Postman is writing in 1985, and he's saying how 60 Minutes, is the death of serious learning because it's like it's the akin to Sesame Street. I mean, nowadays if you watch enough 60 Minutes, they give you a PhD. So I don't know, like what, I'm kidding, but you know what I mean. Like it's practically scholarly to watch 60 Minutes or to read a newspaper these days. So, but any thoughts on that? Just the second you live life more and more at secondhand, and this knowledgeability becomes a substitute for real in your life knowledge. And then the key thing there's the lifestyle subsists purely on the externals. There's no distinction even from secondhand versus the real thing. And the thing that lies beyond those externals, the human person and its uniqueness and totality dwindles to a shadow and ghost. That's the world we live in. Like most people's lives are just like consumption patterns and preferences about media. I mean, I hate to like be like this, but it's true. Like there's very shallow. I think people are quite shallow. I mean, it's sort of preachy perhaps, but and maybe my life is probably true in some degree as well. But I don't know. How does that
The way you see it is it's not a comment on any of the people, but it's on the structure and the society that we all find ourselves in. We
Yeah.
have found ourselves engaged in those same patterns and preferences and defined by the work we do. And the difference is, I think, we actively see this thing that we're in and we're trying to do our best to come out of it and be like, hey, look, like you can actually come out of this thing. Like we're not all stuck here. And it's kind of disorienting and you might sound kind of crazy to somebody. But what stands out to me about that quote is what year is that? 1960?
Probably 58 or 57.
Yeah, so 1958. It's kind of like it's discouraging to a degree where it's the brightest minds of of humanity in the last 200 years are able to forecast like precisely what is wrong with emerging media, and regardless, like the best intellectuals don't really have any leverage against markets, and that probably continues to be the case. Infinite Jest from 1990 is like we live in that now, 35 years later, and we could write a book about what's coming, and then in 2050 it'll come true, and there'll be 10,000 people maybe who one day will be like, oh wow, look at these quotes from Will and Michael, and they're all going to be in some simulation, and it's like to your point, it speaks like, well, what can a resistance do when the market is just pulling everything in towards it? And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it speaks to me to this idea of like the activist versus the artist. And to me, the activist thinks that they can change the society that they're in, where the
Yeah.
artist accepts it. The artist is like, listen, this is all. It's like George Carlin, like we're spinning down the toilet, but
Yeah.
I can still say what I want. I can make art. I can kind of find my flame, and it's not up to me to convert you. I'm going to make art, and if you like it, you can choose to learn from it and do what you want with
Mm.
it. It's like it is it steps out of a position of being desperate to fix things. And
Yeah.
it's actually once you just accept that everyone does live as these secondhand shadows, and it's always going to be like that forever. It's kind of liberating if you can just kind of focus on yourself and your friends and your community and your town.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah,
It's a McKenna thing. Create your own roadshow. Like this sliver of your time and space is the most precious thing, and don't give it away to these icons. Most people aren't going to do that. I do think, yeah, activists or artists is fantastic. That's so good because it's like the rite of passage prompt, changing the world versus your world. Just focus on the domain you can. And by the way, if you do a great enough job of that, you will attract the following. You will attract dollars. You will attract leverage. But be a beacon. I mean, dude, we both do this, not to pat ourselves in the back too much here, but my God, dude, your music, a decade of that, your writing, your ridiculous passion for the structure of an essay that's just so clear in the stuff you put out. It's like people notice that stuff. And obviously with me, I mean, both of us building Rite of Passage, but then primarily for me is Chinese and the way I think about that, like just the ridiculous lengths I go to do this thing. That's so, I literally say an uncommon fire within. I'm just like, yo, world, like this is me. I'm doing this thing. It's really rad. If you want to hear about it, I'm doing it every day. Here's why. And maybe that becomes an example to others, but at least in my own life and in your own life, we're cultivating this practice of beaming our precious attention towards these things that fuel the candle, the world of the soul, these things that fuel the internal. I call the inward turn versus the outward tug. We're turning inward in a really healthy way and using, you know, the precious attention we have towards things that make us feel alive and make our lives richer and give us a rich interiority. I know I've got a rich interiority. I know you do too. That's why we have such good conversations. And when you encounter somebody else who does, Grant, Taylor Foreman, take your pick, these conversations, these, people we know, these friends you have, like, dude, there's nothing better. Sitting down for a conversation with you, with Grant, with the Taylor, like, and so at least that makes our lives richer. And then again, maybe one day we become this beacon for others. But I do think that artists.
Will the internet let those things? I mean, the fact that we're already talking, it has scale to some degree where it could be anywhere, but you can never stop the market.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's certainly no absolute victory here, but there can be like local victories. One other thing I'll say real quick is funny. Have you ever read The Three Body Problem?
No, but I've heard about it a lot.
Read it. You got a book club with a few buddies. That's, by the way, like another create your own roadshow. I was thinking that for McKenna. Like that was us Friday night. Man, we had an amazing 6-hour talk on this book. It's so good. Recommend it. But I'm not going to give everything away by telling you this, but there's this one plot point where there basically becomes this group of radicals who feel like humans are destroying the earth, like surprise, and they're sort of like upset about this and wanting to do something about it. And the main character meets this guy who's like this disillusioned farmer in Asia, white guy in Asia, like he's like mad at the world, mad at mankind for killing the planet. He ends up launching this sort of resistance force in many ways. But I thought it was a really nice wave of the wand, wave of the pen from the author to write in a plot point that guy's dad was an oil executive, but happened to be a multi-billionaire. And when he died, just happened to see the error of his ways and bequeath almost his entire fortune to his middle son and ignore the other two kids. So that this kid happened to have $4.5 billion in the bank to allow him to go launch this resistance. Because like the thing is, in the book, he had no leverage either. Right. So it's like when you want to oppose the markets, it's very difficult to have any actual large scale change, which is why the author wrote, a $4.5 billion check into his pocket to allow him to, you know what I mean? Though it was such a thing of like this guy like totally exists in the real world and just about all of them are in debt or have no money or just doing God knows what, hating Jeff Bezos and not making any difference in the broader world. But does that make sense? So to your point about not having leverage, yeah, it's hard. It's hard when you need leverage. And so as Naval says, we can make leverage through creating media. And I think that's sort of the answer right now.
Right.
But the activist first artist is huge. I'm going to remember that because that ultimately, yeah, you can hope to have this broader change, but it's like the circle of competence. Clean up your room, stand up straight. It starts with you, and then you can work out to your family, your loved ones, and then an audience eventually.
Yeah. I think if I'm trying to think of like the long game of what I'm going for, it's almost like seeing my Substack as this. I don't know. I feel like the creator economy, and if you look at a lot of the breakouts, even through Rite of Passage, there's a certain like the fact that the market is pushing towards this like thing, it almost feels like the market wants you to be the identity version of artificial light, right? That's what a brand is. A brand is the self turned into neon in a way that's instantly digestible.
Or like creator economy brand, even not just like some shoe brand or something, like when you sort of become this brand on your Twitter feed or whatever, that is
yeah. If you're the whole idea is if you're willing to say like I'm a multi-dimensional person with a fire inside of me, and I want to be the man of a million niches, right? But like most people are like, oh, if I pick this one niche, you become so legible to the market that you then become propelled to become this god for just a single facet of you, and then it basically traps you into being that thing forever. It's another version of like hell in a way when you actually succeed by going into architect mode and you double down on a single idea. It's a false thing where like Emerson is like you're this uncontrollable fire of complexity and contradiction. And so kind of my hope with Substack is to somehow like be a working example. I mean, Visa is like a good example of this, where he is kind of uncontrollable.
That guy, a volcano of activity. Like I'm so,
Yeah,
so
that's kind of my model of what I hope to be
love that.
to be that volcano, to somehow attract people to it, and then just have like a modest life for myself where it's like, okay, I can just live a middle class life with a family and like one or two kids and continue to be a volcano. I don't need to strike it rich. Um, I don't need a seven-figure income. You know what I mean? Like you watch some of these creator economy videos and it's like it's just so in the clouds. Like, yeah, I need like a 7 or 8 figure recurring revenue business. And like, um, I mean, nothing against what people and having that as a goal. I just think that when you get into that realm of just like optimizing for revenue and profit as a creator, you become that version of artificial light. You can't. It's kind of how like this you're saying how the candle can't quite turn into the football lights.
Yeah, and it just doesn't work. Like even if you have the greatest bonfire of all time, like it wouldn't light the football stadium properly. Like Emerson, like it would still cast shadows and stuff. Like it's not so like a football light. It's such a good contrast because it's just it's like N by four. It's just bang. It's just this
Yeah.
or like when you see people do road construction at night. It's like I always struck by how blinding that light is, but it's so devoid of any soul or anything. And so, um, yeah, dude, like I hear you. The one thing I would maybe push back on a bit is that like if you do it well enough, I think you're capable of doing this. You can, I just have this image in my mind. It's like a spear tip or something. If you can get so good and so skilled at the thing that actually is you, because it's all about like, what are you capturing value over what time horizon? If you want to do the thing of like Ali Abdaal used to say, okay, just put out something every week for 2 years and you will make money. If you want to make really good money in 2 years, you typically have to do the like I'm the blank guy type of move. And then let's call it the neonification. That's a great term, huh? Neonification or the
Yeah.
LinkedInification. LinkedIn's the ultimate example. My God, that place is devoid of a soul. But okay, so there's like that move. But I talked to Henrik Carlson recently, and he was saying he can almost
Oh,
support his family through his writing. Okay. And he's only been writing for 2.5 years. Now he's really, really good. And he has an
yeah.
extremely monk-like practice. He gets up at 5 a.m. every day and writes for 3 hours. His wife helps him edit. I mean, he is so dedicated. He's doing it almost full time. And he sacrificed money and different things to do that. But he's going to be able to support his family later this year just through writing. But if he wants to do it for the next 50 years. So the thing is, he keeps going. The total addressable market of the internet is so large, and what he's writing is interesting to enough people that he actually will get to the seven-figure thing. He talks about his buddies who sold out. He had all his old poet friends who now work at, VPs of banks in Stockholm. Meanwhile, he's on this little, farm in Denmark, like doing this. But his he can still hit this exponential curve. I mean, he can like in the like lower part of the curve, he can still support a family, but like he has this exponential upside that the banker just doesn't have. It's possible. It doesn't mean everybody will do it. And he's really good. So he's doing a lot faster. I had a call with a guy recently who is like in his 30s and he's a little bit stuck in life and he's a good writer. He's trying to, and I was giving him all this advice. I'm like, but it's like, dude, it's not going to take you 20 years, but it won't happen in 6 months. Like you got to stick with it for a while. Henry can happen relatively quickly because he's really, really good. But dude, like so are you. Like that can still happen for me with Chinese. If I can just sharpen that thing so you can pierce
Right.
through to this like transcendent life, I think. Um, anyways, it does take like it takes time and stuff, but I gotta believe that it's possible. And one last thing with Henrik, he said, even if I change the stuff I write about, people pay because they want it. It's parasocial relationship with me, Henrik, because I'm putting my unique self in the writing. He goes on a one level, I'm writing about like education. Maybe I'll write about something different in a year, but they're really paying for me. And that's not true with I'm the blank guy. I'm the product manager guy. You're paying for some product
Yes.
management. And in 2 years,
You
you have,
have an abstract interest that is frozen.
yeah, that's right. So it's a lot more durable to do the Henrik thing. If you have something interesting, a lot of people do have no interiority at all. They don't even know who they are. Like their deepest self is the product manager guy or whatever. He's 7 marketing tips guy. And so your copywriting tips guy. And so this isn't for everybody too. Like not everybody's meant to be like
Great point.
an
If you
artist.
have interiority, the answer, and then people who have interiority should play the long game of the internet.
Yes. And then it's a positive feedback loop. It reinforces itself because then you gain more interiority, and then you have more interesting things to say, and it just reinforces it. And then you make money, and you can support yourself by letting your interiority flourish. It's a pretty good deal. I mean, Henrik was like, "There's nothing I'd rather do, and I want to do this for the next 5 decades." It's like, damn, it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah.
On the one other point, it's like I always do this. Where I'll look like I'll pull up like a biography of Emerson, and I'll go for the 1-star reviews. Why? Because it's like the best damn book I've ever read. And then I can find there's people like, "Yo, this sucks. Emerson's is boring." And it's like, okay, it's just proof that like I don't have to resonate with everybody. There's people who I'm just diametrically opposed to, and let them be them. If there's people who think Emerson sucks, or that my stuff sucks, or that's weird that it's Chinese, fine. Like, cool. Like the internet is so big that there's enough people out there that'll really dig what I'm doing, what you're doing, what Henrik's doing, and that's what counts. For our conversation about the infinite, hyper porn, whatever of the Vision Pro, as we know, not just pornography, any addictive form of entertainment.
Yeah.
Like this is just more necessary than ever. What really set off this whole thread we've been on this past hour is I know you weren't like making some like ultimate comment here, but you made an offhand remark about, oh, maybe TikTok and the Vision Pro is the ultimate thing. And we're sort of like, wait, no, it's just the beginning. And the need to fight this good fight is more important than ever. And it's been being fought since the 50s when, William Barrett's writing about newspapers causing an evacuation of maturity. I mean, my God, what is the Vision Pro? It's like, it's so perfect because your face is the part of you that's so unique. And the metaphor of that just being covered up and assumed into the infotainment complex or whatever is really strong. But, dude, great. Well, hey, maybe we can do a little post game and talk about some of this other stuff or end the recording here. What do you think?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Awesome talk. So glad we do these, and till the next one, man. Yeah, this is great. Awesome. All right.